We've addressed Mark Stoops' recruiting approach here a number of times with Kevin McGuffey from Last Word on College Football, as Stoops has rejuvenated the Kentucky football program, of course, into a postseason team most years. And, of course, it's National Signing Day here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We got Kevin McGuffey on the line from Last Word on College Football. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing good, Mark. Thanks for having me on again. As always, it's great to talk with you. And signing day is always it's always exciting. May not be always as exciting with Kentucky, but you know it's still very. It's been a good group for Coach Stoops and the staff, and they've signed 18 players, which is a little lower than what you would normally have in a class, but you can say quality. They can say quality over quantity, or you could say, and what Coach Stoops and Vince Marrow, his head recruiter, said was that they're expecting maybe to sign 4 or 5 other guys, and possibly even a couple of transfers. So they said it's 38th, I think 38th by 247 Sports and 44th by Rivals, which is a little lower than what Kentucky has been the last few years, and I think a lot of that is just to the lower number of players, because it always seems to be balanced by how many players you sign, plus however the ratings work. But still, there's a lot of guys that I think can do some really good things for the Cats. We've talked about this before. The last few years, the recruiting in Kentucky has been a major priority for the Cats, for Stoops, and this year is no different. They signed 4 of the top 5 players in the state of Kentucky and 6 of the top 10. So like I said, they made a big effort with that, and like I said, it's a lot of guys who I think you will see sooner than later playing on Saturdays for Kentucky.
Yeah, so looking at the class, again, you mentioned it's a small class, and I'm hearing from a number of reporters dealing with these teams that the small class may, in some cases, have to do with the transfer portal and also the ability of these seniors to come back and the expectation that many of them will come back, and then trying to balance that out. How many players can you sign in this particular class and maintain the scholarship limit? So that'll be an interesting juggling act for these coaching staffs to take on during the off season. But as you look at the class,
I was going to say just a couple of names. Phil Hoskins, who's a defensive lineman who's already been in Kentucky. He was granted a 6 year of eligibility this past year due to injuries before. He was joking, said, "Hey, I might just come back. I might be a 7th year senior next year and just see, I might be the 40-year-old college student that's still here or something." And Josh Ali, Kentucky's best receiver, even hinted that he could come back. But as you said, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I think some of these seniors, especially, you can come back for another year, and some of them may take them up on the offer. So as you said, I think that's a lot of why, as you said, a lot of around the country, some of the classes are a little smaller this year.
So who do you like out of this class?
I tell you what, one name that jumps out at me is Christian Lewis. He's a wide receiver out of Pleasant Grove, Alabama. He was a 3-star. I think he just got his 4th star this week. He played. He's, like I said, he's a really strong player. He played in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game over this past week. Went up against some of the top secondary people, including one guy from Alabama whose name escapes me right now, of course, when we're on the air. He's the number 1 rated cornerback in the 2021 class, and Lewis not only held his own, but actually outplayed him. He's one of those guys that always seems to rise to the occasion, and in the big games, he's one guy that I'm really excited about. And then a couple other guys, local guys, Jagger Burton, who's offensive lineman from here at Frederick Douglass High School in Lexington, and his teammate, DeKel Crowdis, who's a wide receiver. Both of those guys are big time. We talk about the big blue wall all the time. You've got Landon Young, you've got Drake Jackson, Blake Fortner. All these guys are graduating. Darian Kennard, is only a junior. He may test the waters of the NFL. So, the big blue wall, to coin a phrase, is going to need some help, some added pieces. And he's a guy who I think is going to be really, really, really good. Like I said, his teammate, Dekel Crowdis, a wide receiver. He's, kind of one of those shifty, sneaky playmaker guys who can, finds a way to always get behind the defense and make some stops. And then another player on the defensive side is Jordan Lovett, who's a safety from North Hardin. He led the nation in interceptions as a junior last year with 15. And you think about Kentucky was tops in the SEC in picks this year. He's a guy can step right in, I think, because Kentucky loses some players on that side of the ball. And then another receiver. One of the things that Kentucky hit really hard this in this class is a wide receiver position. And I think a lot of them, we may talk about this here in a few minutes, with the new offensive coordinator, one thing they really want to do is improve that wide receiver position. Because as you and I have talked for the last 2 years, last year you had Lynn Bowden who didn't play wide receiver, but first 5 games last year and still led the team in receptions. And then other than Josh Ali this year, finding that other receiver has always, for whatever reason, has been a problem. And so towards the end of the season, they started figuring out, hey, we can throw to the tight end and good things happen. So you see, Keaton Upshaw, Justin Rigg, those guys, and those guys had some really good numbers at the end of the year. But a player, Devontae Ross, he's out of Georgia. He had just committed. He's another wide receiver. He had just committed to Marshall less than a month ago, but he was a guy that UK had always had their eye on, and they got him to flip today from Marshall to Kentucky. And every recruiting expert if you look at anything with Kentucky, his name is one of the ones that pops up right there at the top. And so he's another guy. He's three-star guy, but he's 6 foot, 170 pounds. But like I said, the coaching staff just really, really liked him and stayed on him. And Anwar Stewart, I think, was the recruiter on him and got him to flip today. And they were just overjoyed, really, really excited. And you look at the track history, really, you think what Stoops and these guys have done. You think about Josh Allen, Calvin Taylor last year. Some of these guys really, really under the radar. And this staff has developed them and turned these guys, Josh Allen's first round pick. Calvin Taylor, was in the Steelers training camp. You could even say somebody like Benny Snell was probably vastly under recruited coming out of high school. And we see what he did. And they think that Ross can be another one of those kind of players.
Kevin McGuffey on the line from Last Word on College Football here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. What we do each and every day is talk the game we love. Best discussion, debate, and analysis. That's our mission, our goal, our objective. All right. We've talked Kentucky and National Signing Day, 38th rated class, according to 247 Sports, number 44, as Kevin has outlined, from Rivals. And going to the next level to find an offensive coordinator, Liam Coen, who's working with Sean McVay right now.
Yeah. Since you and I last talked, we even hinted about it. I think I was on with you after the South Carolina game and said that there was rumors that there was going to be changes in the coaching staff. And then the next day, offensive coordinator Eddie Gran and co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach Darren Henshaw were both relieved of their duties, for lack of a better, however you want to phrase it. And the interesting thing is, apparently this was actually decided earlier in the year that Gran wasn't going to be back. They just waited until after the regular season to announce it. And so they put to use a basketball phrase, put the full court press on, or the 2-minute drill, whatever you want to call it, and said, we want to get somebody in here before signing day. And you're talking basically 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. So there were 4 names. One of them was Joe Moorhead, of course, was at Mississippi State, and then was the offensive coordinator at Penn State. Obviously had Saquon Barkley, all those guys did some great things there. He's at Oregon right now. I think, he's only been there for a year. I don't think he wanted to move again. That's, what we had heard anyway. And then Brian Brom, who's former U of L, the Brom family, big time U of L players. He's quarterbacks with the offense at Purdue. He was another name that came up. And then a third name that came up was Bush Hamdan, who's the quarterbacks coach at Missouri, guy that a lot of people may not have heard of. But you think about what their offense, under Coach Drinkwitz has done this year. So that was another name. And then the fourth name, they were looking for, I think they were really looking for an NFL guy, and Coen's name came up and they got to talking and, obviously hit it off, and boom, they announced on Monday that he was going to be the new offensive coordinator, because as you and I have talked, Kentucky's offense has been, it is what it is. Like run the ball. The passing game has been virtually non-existent. I think they were 121st in the country this year in passing offense. And, the old adage, and Stoops is an old school guy, defense wins games. But I think people, and you even look at Nick Saban, who's even come out and said, yeah, we always said defense wins games, but, if you score 50 points, your odds of beating somebody go way up. And so I think he's just trying, I've got to adapt, got to change our approach a little bit, because also you want to keep the fans. We hope in 2021 the fans will be back, and you want Kroger Field to be packed. And if you're running a not so exciting offense, it's you have that going too. So anyway, Coen is the guy. He won't start until after the Rams season is over. He did a meet and greet with the media yesterday, and talked about how he thinks this offense can work. You think, like I said, you think about all these receivers. They have some good receivers in the program. It's just getting them to perform at that next level. And it's been, like I said, it's been a thing for a few years now. And no one has ever been able to figure out what exactly the problem is, but we're hoping, obviously, True Blue fans are hoping that this is going to be the start of something new and something very exciting. I think it's, me personally, I think it's a great, home run hire. Couldn't be more excited. And I think a majority of the Kentucky fans are excited about it too. So we'll see how that all changes. Like I said, hopefully we'll have spring football this year, and we can get in. They can get in with the new coach and the new staff and learn and see how it goes.
So when you bring up in an NFL guy, the first thought is that the passing offense is going to be upgraded and more sophisticated. And I'm sure that's true. I did catch the Rams play. This was only about a week ago on Monday Night Football. And actually, they threw it very little, and they gave the ball to Cam Akers about 55 times in that game.
Yeah.
So did he talk about, what his, or is there any talk surrounding his transition from the Rams to Kentucky, about what he's made his calling card and what has been his success in terms of, his approach?
Well, I mean, he just, he outlined, as you said, the Rams it is kind of funny that, as you said, they've kind of become, with Akers and even Darrell Henderson, kind of a more run first thing. But he said he wants to come in, he wants to open up the offense, not quite like the air raid, which many Kentucky fans are still clamoring for 20 years ago, because, maybe people don't remember, it kind of got started at Kentucky with Hal Mumme and Mike Leach as the offensive coordinator and Tim Couch as the quarterback. And people, 20 years later, it's like, we still want the air raid offense. But no, he wants, he calls it a pro style offense, wants to get the receivers in, throwing the ball a lot more. But at the same time, he said, we can't forget about the guys, the running backs. So you think about it, Kentucky has some of the best sets of running backs in the country, in the SEC, in my opinion, and in the country. AJ Rose is a senior. We assume that he, will not be back this year, but you never know with what we just talked about. Some of these guys could come back, but you think about, you've got Chris Rodriguez. He's probably going to be the main back this year. He's run for over 800 yards, close to 800 yards. You think he missed 2 games. He missed the Alabama game and the Florida game. And then you have Kavasier Smoke, of course. We've talked about him, one of the best names in college football. And then behind that, you've got Travis Tisdale, you've got Juton McClain, and then they signed a running back, He's actually the first Lavelle Wright from North Hardin. He's actually, it's kind of a crazy stat. He's the first in-state running back to sign with Kentucky in almost a decade, which is kind of crazy. But if you think about it, Benny Snell was from Ohio, Lynn Bowden was from Ohio, Tisdale's from Georgia, Rodriguez is from Georgia. There's been some good running backs, but they've all gone to other places. You think about, Rondale Moore or Wandale Robinson, two guys that come to mind immediately that all went, one went to Purdue, one went to Nebraska. That's just recently. But he said all the right things. What I think what everybody wants to hear is they want to open the offense up. They want to throw the ball. They want this, wide open kind of pro style. But at the same time, you don't want to forget the running game because, I said it's what Kentucky and, Coach Stoops has kind of built their reputation on the last few years. So, but like I said, I think it's going to be a great hire. I think it's going to be very, very exciting for Kentucky fans.
Kevin McGuffey, last word on college football, breaking down the Kentucky 2021 signing class for us. Kevin, we appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you, Mark, for having me on as always. I appreciate it, and go Cats, and we'll see on Sunday where they end up in a bowl game. Right now we're thinking possibly Music City Bowl, maybe Liberty or Gator as a possibility. But if I was going to put money on it now, I think I'd say Music City, but we'll see. We'll find out on Sunday.